At the moment, Lil Durk is currently in prison awaiting trial for a murder case. If found guilty, he could be serving the rest of his life in prison. But this all could have been avoided if he had lowered his pride and left the street life behind him. You see, instead of chasing his dreams and laying low, Lil Durk chose his gangster image over his own family, even when he was warned about making the wrong decision.
I forgave my brother's killer, and I'm saying it to say this. Nigga that killed my brother, my brother died in my grandma's arms. He died in Nanny's arms when she opened the door. If I ain't let that shit go, I won't be right here today. I won't be here for my niece and my nephews. Me and Gil won't be doing this. Y'all won't know me. I won't be able to give y'all this game. But I had to leave. I had to let that shit go.
Lil Durk has now been denied bond on numerous occasions, since he has proved to be a flight risk. So this now begs the question, how on earth did Lil Durk go from a Grammy-winning superstar to a blood-hungry killer facing life in prison? Well, to answer that question, we have to go way back to where it all began. Deep in the trenches of Inglewood on the south side of Chicago, a young Lil Durk grew up in poverty alongside his older brother D-Thang. His mom was a nurse who barely made ends meet, and as far as his dad is concerned, he was out of the picture because he got a case and was sentenced to life in prison, all while Durk was still 7 months old. So with a childhood that twisted, you could only imagine how bad Lil Durk was gonna turn out. By the time he got into high school, Durk had already started selling drugs, and sometimes he would even resort to using them himself. Durk didn't just get his hands dirty when it came to drugs, he also did so with guns. When he was 20, Lil Durk was already a fully pledged member of the Black Disciple set, Lemron. His gang affiliation often came with some unwanted attention from the police. For instance, in 2013, Lil Durk would get his first serious arrest. During a traffic stop, Lil Durk would be found with a loaded firearm. Initially, Durk threw the gun away and he tried to make a run for it, but he wasn't fast enough as the officer would eventually catch up to him and then book him on possession. He was later released on bond, and judging by court filings, his case somehow was soon forgotten. Without the threat of facing prison time, Durk finally had the chance to focus on his one true love, music. Growing up, Durk knew that school was gonna be a non-factor in his life, so he leaned on music as the next best thing. He had a lot of pain and anger that needed to be let out, so he used rapping as an outlet. But while most rappers make it big with hit songs, Durk's fame was actually conceived due to a beef that turned deadly. In comes Lil Jojo. Just like Durk, Jojo was also an up-and-coming rapper from Inglewood. In fact, the two of them even went to the same high school together, but that doesn't mean they were friendly. It turns out Durk and Jojo were from two rival gangs, so that meant the two of them hated each other automatically. So during the inception of his rap career, Durk decided to take digs at Lil Jojo with his song Competition. The song was not received well by Jojo and his camp, so as retaliation, Jojo came out with a diss of his own titled BDK, which stood for Black Disciple Killer. While the diss was mainly targeted at the whole BD set, Jojo spared a few lines for Lil Durk, mentioning him directly by name.
Durk say fuck with squad, so I can't wait to catch him. Squeeze this fucking 40, now they got him on the stretcher.
Jojo dissing Durk was one of, if not the greatest thing for Durk's career, because their rap beef brought a lot of necessary attention to both their careers. And as we've seen by the events of last year, having a rapper to go against really pushes your career forward, since you can't have a hero without a villain. Only in this story, they were no heroes. But that didn't matter for Def Jam. Due to the attention he was receiving from the beef with Lil Jojo, Def Jam would sign Lil Durk to the already star-studded roster. This was the much-needed push Durk needed to finally get to the next level. So to keep the attention on him, Durk did what he did best. That was diss Lil Jojo. But sadly for Durk, or happily depending on how you see it, his sparring partner couldn't fight back anymore, as near the end of 2012, Jojo would be gunned down while riding a bike. Durk would take to his Twitter on multiple occasions to celebrate the demise of his longtime foe, eventually pissing on his grave one final time with his song, This Ain't What You Want. Claim 300, add a K, you're done. With his beef with Lil Jojo finally over, Durk moved on to the next chapter of his life, which was focusing on his music career. But that was not going to be easy, as it looked like his own record label was trying to blackball him. The main reason Durk was signed to Def Jam was because of the popularity he gained beefing with Jojo. But ironically, Def Jam wasn't even a fan of his work as a drill artist. They wanted Durk to abandon drill music and switch over to a more pop star-like sound. The reasoning behind this was obvious. Def Jam wanted to make more money off Lil Durk. If he switched to a more pop-based sound, it would be easier to market his music to a more ad-friendly audience, giving them better opportunities to play his songs on the radio and be more mainstream. Durk did not like this, but he had no choice. He had to comply with his label's demands. So overnight, Lil Durk went from rapping about killing people to singing about how his girlfriend was Beyonce. That song would go platinum, but it gave the label false hope as he never made another track as big as My Beyonce. All the other tracks released after it were ignored by his core fanbase. After all, nobody in Chicago was crying out for the next Justin Bieber. They were itching for murder anthems from the likes of Chief Keef. With no support from his fans, his label gave up on his career entirely, and they promoted him as little as possible. For Durk, he realized that the final verdict was simple. Def Jam was biased against the Chicago drill scene. So in 2018, he finally had enough. Def Jam and Lil Durk parted ways, citing creative differences. Looking back at his time with Def Jam, it's easy to say that they were sabotaging his career, but were they really? You see, in reality, they were actually saving his life. Distancing Durk from the Chicago drill scene may have had a negative effect on his career, but not his life. During his time signed to Def Jam, Durk was a model citizen who mostly stayed out of trouble. And even when he did get into brushes with the law, he was quickly forgiven, likely because he had distanced himself from the Chicago gang scene. You see, Def Jam wasn't trying to sabotage Lil Durk. They were simply trying to protect the investment. They could not have one of their best talent getting locked up or, even worse, murdered, all because he was trying to be about that life. They wanted better for Durk. They wanted him to possibly be the next Kendrick Lamar, and as we all know, Kendrick Lamar isn't toting guns in music videos and singing about how he wants his ops dead. Hence why Def Jam decided to switch up Lil Durk's sound, because all they were trying to do was keep Durk out of trouble, and judging by the events of 2018, it looks like Durk should have listened to them. 3 months after leaving Def Jam, Durk signed a $40 million deal with Alamo Records, and unlike Def Jam, they didn't stop Durk from rapping about his drill roots. In fact, they promoted it. By September of that year, No Auto Durk was released, and it reminded everybody just how gangster Durk could be.
Pipe you out same night you fed or what? New op pack in the air, this gas or what?
Wait, did you see that? Yeah, right there. If you scroll back a little bit, you'd notice a cameo appearance by a very special someone. That's King Von. Following his prison release in 2017, King Von reunited with his old friend, and he was everything Def Jam tried to avoid for Lil Durk. You see, King Von had just narrowly beaten a murder case, so he wasn't the type of company any sane person would want around. But for Durk, he was an old friend, so he didn't mind. The two of them started being seen more frequently together, and over time, it became clear that they were planning something big together. And on an interview with The Breakfast Club, it was confirmed that Lil Durk had officially signed King Von to his OTF record label.
Von, V-O-N,
King Von, I'm sorry.
K-I-N-G.
What made you want to sign King Von?
Cause he got a whole story behind him. Know what I'm saying? He from O Block.
Okay.
Know what I'm saying? That should speak for itself. Nah. But know what I'm saying? He just real. Know what I'm saying? It's my brother, twin.
Little did Durk know that this one decision might have just cost him his freedom in the future. After his little interview, it didn't take long for the pair to get into trouble, as during their time at a burger joint, King Von and Lil Durk would allegedly head out to a parking lot and rob a man of $30,000 in cash, a chain, and his Jeep. This incident, though, quickly got them arrested.
Lil Durk, whose real name is Dirk Derek Banks, and his co-defendant Devontae Bennett were seen on camera involved in shooting Alexander Witherspoon, a person police say they knew. Police told the judge later that night the victim, Banks, Bennett, and others went to a nightclub, a gas station, and ended up in the parking lot of the Varsity. That's when Witherspoon said he was robbed and shot.
He said his chain was snatched off his neck, and he had $30,000 stolen from him, and they stole the vehicle he was driving.
At this point, King Von had already proven that he was a magnet for trouble, but Durk still didn't care. Despite all the red flags, he still put his brother on, and by the looks of it, his gamble paid off. Within 2 years, King Von went on to become one of, if not the biggest names to ever come out of the Chicago drill scene, possibly even bigger than Durk himself. Everywhere Von performed, he was guaranteed to get the crowd going. Von finally had the world in his palms. He had money, cars, fans, fame. But one thing he also had was his pride. Von had a well-documented reputation for being feared. He was allegedly connected to the murders of 10 individuals, so with a rap sheet like that, He felt untouchable. No, scratch that. He felt invincible. So invincible, in fact, that on the 6th of November, he planned to go out and beat up one of his ops, all without being armed. You see, King Von didn't see eye to eye with Quando Rondo and NBA Youngboy, but that's another story on its own, so watch this video if you're liking the context behind it. After getting Quando Rondo's location, a hot-headed King Von rushed into the scene to incite a brawl. This, however, backfired as Von would be shot and killed by one of Quando Rondo's friends.
Two men approached King Von and his group in the parking lot, and an argument ensued. The argument quickly escalating to a shootout between the two groups.
Von's death sent shockwaves around the industry, with both fans and rappers alike all sending their condolences.
Okay, do you have any words for King Von's family, or
were you my deepest condolences?
Okay, all right.
But as hurt as the fans were, no one was in more pain than Lil Durk. As soon as Von was laid to rest, the message was simple: slide for Von. Fans alike wanted Lil Durk to prove just how gangster he was. He needed to get revenge for his fallen friends. This was obviously a bad idea, and multiple people tried to talk him out of it.
Nothing you could do to bring Von back, but he should go slide with his gun and kill niggas. Off his career, his relationship, maybe go to jail or get himself killed so his kids don't have a father, and repeat that process. Why should he do that when he can use his platform to keep Von's name alive, take care of Von's kids? And why do people always got to do nut shit? And then as soon as you go do the nut shit, the same fan that told you to slide, like, oh, he's stupid, they just gonna switch it up.
Durk had one of two choices to make: either honor King Von's legacy by keeping his name alive in music, or he could risk his freedom and get revenge in cold blood. His mind was made up. During a gas stop with his cousin Pop, Quando Rondo would be shot at multiple times. Luckily for Quando, none of the bullets hit him. But the same could not be said for his cousin, as he got shot multiple times, eventually dying on the scene. 2 years later, in 2024, 6 men would be arrested for that murder, with the 6th man and mastermind being Lil Durk. Durk allegedly paid and ordered 5 men to take the life of Quando Rondo as retaliation for the King Von shooting. And if you want a full video on that story explaining just how he planned the whole hit, click on the top right corner of your screen. As of now, Lil Durk has been denied bond on multiple occasions, and he is now facing life in prison, a fate he knows all too well due to his father's early incarceration. In this sad story, Lil Durk has no one to blame but himself. Durk's loyalty to King Von turned into a vendetta that might see him away from his family for decades. He could have let bygones be bygones, but instead, he chose the street code over his own freedom, and now he's paying for his sins behind his cell.